everyone. I'm Ione Butler and I'm the founder of Uplifting Content. And today I have two very special guests for you. One of them I've already interviewed actually. Last year we had a fascinating conversation, which I'll link to in the post description so you can check that out too. But it's Arno Michaelis and Pardeep Singh Kaleka. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you both?
We're doing great.
Fantastic. Thanks for having us, Ione.
Oh, my pleasure. I had such a great conversation with you last time. I'm really looking forward to this. So for anyone who doesn't know you, would you both mind taking a second to introduce yourselves, just sharing with the audience a bit about you and your story, and then we can go into how you guys know each other and work together.
Sure.
So, Pardeep, take it away.
No problem. Thank you. My name is Pardeep. I met Arno about 2 months after the Sikh temple shooting, which was on August 5th, 2012. I am a first-generation immigrant. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but I immigrated from Punjab, which is a smaller province in India, nestled right next to what is modern-day Pakistan. When we immigrated here, Milwaukee was, very much your pull location where we had a lot of manufacturing jobs, but as we got here, we started to see those jobs start to leave the city. And with that came the rise of crime, the rise of illegal opportunities for employment. And we did the whole immigrant journey where you kind of move around from place to place to place to place, trying to find a safe place to live. With that said, I kind of grew up wanting to give back to my community. And so would become a police officer. In one of the worst areas, I guess, as far as like crime goes in Milwaukee, and became an educator, and then was doing that when August 5th happened, and realized maybe I wasn't doing enough. So
just for anyone that might not know, could you tell me what happened on August 5th in Wisconsin?
Sure. On August 5th, a white supremacist, an affiliated white supremacist, attacked the Sikh temple of Wisconsin, which is in Oak Creek, and killed 6 people before taking his own life when he engaged in a firefight with police right outside the Gurdwara. It was obvious that he wasn't going to be taken alive, and so that's one of the people that would lose their life that day was my father and temple president, Satwan Singh Kaleka, and then 5 other immigrants.
Right. Thank you. And Arno, could you tell us your story, please?
Yeah, from the late 1980s to the early 1990s, I was involved in white power skinhead hate groups. I was a leader and an organizer of these groups. I was the lead vocalist of a white power metal band that was very popular. I was very fortunate to be led out of that miserable life of hate by people who had the courage to respond to my aggression with compassion, and who defied my hostility by setting examples of how human beings should treat each other. So I left that in 1994. Ever since, I've been just absolutely grateful to not be that person anymore, and also really driven to help as many people as I can, to help people heal, and do everything in my power to make the world more peaceful. And that's what I was doing when August 5th, 2012 happened. And seeing is that the shooter was a guy from the gang that I helped to start. He was also in white power bands. He was in many ways exactly who I used to be. I felt a really immense urgency to respond to this atrocity in a way that would bring about a society where it would be less likely to happen again.
Right. So did you then reach out to Pardeep? How did you guys come together?
So I actually reached out to Arno, and through a network that we were both working for. We didn't know each other before that, but August 5th, Arno was responding the way that he responded, and I was responding the way that we were responding, and just to join.
What is that, by the way? Sorry, what are the ways that you guys responded?
I think we were just trying to put the narrative out there that this hate wasn't going to define our community. This separation, and then Wade Page, what he was trying to instigate was separation, a racial holy war. Mm-hmm. For us being Sikhs, our main tenet, our first tenet is Ekun God, which is like one God, one creator, one source. And to understand this oneness, so as white supremacists attacks people who believe in that tenet more than any other tenet, we're not going to be separated because of that. And that was the narrative that we were putting out.
It was actually really amazing because one of the coolest things about our relationship is that, and Parr even told me early on, he's like, if you're ever at a meeting and I'm not there, like, you can speak for me because we're on the same page with everything. And over and over and over again, this plays out from like little logistical things to like larger kind of tactical things. And months before I met Pardeep, in the week following the shooting, my response to the media that wanted to hear from me as a former white supremacist was that same message of oneness. And it was also in the same spirit of defiance against the shooter who wanted to cause separation. So the most powerful way to defy that hate and violence is really to be grounded in the truth of our oneness as humanity. And this is another example of how we were on the same page before we even met.
That's amazing. So Pardeep, you reached out, and then what did you guys do? Like what happened from there?
Yeah, so I reached out, and I think a lot of the other inspiration for me reaching out was there was no closure. This shooter had killed himself, because he wasn't going to be taken alive or taken to jail. So with him went the motivation. And with that, we can put on this brave face, but until you really get somebody to take accountability for that, and like offer a plan to go forward, I don't think you really get closure. It's kind of a fake closure, but you're doing the best you can.
Right.
So me reaching out to Arno was really like two things. I wanted to understand the white supremacist ideology from an authentic source. I think sometimes we understand and we take it from, this day and age, all kinds of sources. So I wanted to understand from an authentic source, but I also think I also wanted somebody to take accountability. And I know, as unfair as that might even be, is like, he's not the shooter, but I wanted someone to just kind of stand up and say, you know what, I'm responsible for this and I'm going to do something about it.
Amazing. So there wasn't like hostility or animosity. It was just somebody taking responsibility and sort of being prepared to do something about it. Is that what you mean?
There was a mixture of emotions. I would say there's a little bit of hostility. There's a little bit of anger, sadness, just in the skin of emotions that we wear. I think it bottles in a lot of what we feel internally. And I think I was coming to this meeting with all that, but I wanted to also process that. And so, for these past 6 years, Arno has, for one, been my best friend, my brother, but he's also been that therapist to kind of like unpackage that mixture of emotional skin, I would call it.
Yeah. You're pretty wonderful, Arno.
Yeah.
Amazing human, both of you.
It's just an honor to me to help Pardeep any way I can. And he's helped me immensely in so many ways. Since I went public with my story in 2010, my life's dream has been able to do this full time. And Pardeep is absolutely the lone person who made that happen over the past 6 years. It's really because of his help and his support and his love that I am able to do this full time. And everything I do now is I feel motivated. I really got to live up to that. I have to honor the support and love Pardeep's given me, and so many other people have, like yourself. And really do the best I can to bring about a world where all people are valued and included, and hate doesn't dominate the conversation.
Yes. And it's amazing because I interview a good amount of people that have gone through a lot of hardships, or like sort of your experience, Arno, and Pardeep, what happened to your father and everything and stuff that you've dealt with. And it's always amazing. The resounding thing people I speak to is this trauma, this hardship, the struggles, the dark times, they're always the thing that people turn around, and it's the thing that they then lead their life with in making a difference and making change. And so I just feel like reminding anybody that is going through anything, that this can be the catalyst for you to create your life, to be making that change and being of service and helping other people. Like it for me, it kind of, it doesn't make the stuff, you know, it doesn't make the loss of your father any easier, but it's kind of just saying that something from that amazing can happen, you know? Yeah. So in the last 6 years then, what have you guys been up to?
Yeah, so my personal journey, aside from like what we're doing together, and I think it's a joint journey as well, has led me into, well, just exactly what you talked about, being a therapist and working with trauma clients. And so working with survivors and sometimes even perpetrators of violence. And just like you kind of just told it, like that separation that people feel, that like, you know, I'm not feeling all together. And so one of the most beautiful things that I hear people say as they come into therapy is, you know, I'm sick of feeling like this, or I'm sick of feeling like myself. And I get to come back and say, you know what, you just used two people in one sentence. And you're really saying to me and the world that you're sick of feeling separated.
Right.
And and bringing that together, a lot of times we think that, and it could be that other people are the cause of our pain, but if we don't start from ourselves and understand that we ourselves are separated, we can't be one with other people.
Right.
We'll just be deflecting all day long. So it's been an honor to work with the clients that we get to work with, and just to encourage them to keep writing their story and keep writing their journeys. So yeah, we're oftentimes people ask us like, what is our greatest inspiration, and it's the people that we work with.
Mm-hmm.
And also, within days of the shooting, Pardeep and his brother Amardeep and other people who had lost loved ones in the shooting made up their mind that they weren't going to just let this atrocity stand as it was. And the idea for Serve to Unite came about. Service being very principal to the Sikh faith, oneness, as we discussed, also being another like tenet of it. The idea to have an organization to actively defy hate and violence on an ongoing basis was born. It didn't really like crystallize as to who, what, when, how until Par and I met, and we started bringing that concept to schools. So since April of 13, we've been working with young people from 2nd grade through college. Our program is about arts-driven service learning and global engagement. So we feel that one of the most powerful ways for people to really experience oneness and to see the power of it is to work side by side, rolling up their sleeves, getting their hands dirty to fix issues in our society. Over the years, our students have addressed things like homelessness, veterans issues, community police relations, human trafficking, religious intolerance, racism, homophobia, environmental issues, like pretty much anything that these young people were concerned about. Yeah, genocide prevention, Holocaust education. We ask them what they're passionate about, they answer us, and then we facilitate that happening with mentorship from a really amazing roster of people from around the world who also have amazing stories like us. We've been working in schools primarily, but over the past couple of years, we've also started working with small towns and municipalities, helping populations deal with demographic shift, which is like really an ongoing challenge. I think fear of change is just a primal human issue. And we've done things like in Groton, Massachusetts, we helped the town that had been there for a long time move from being uncomfortable with a large Hindu population moving in to welcoming them and actually bringing them into the political process of the town.
Yeah,
that's incredible. How did you do that?
So we were invited to this town by an interfaith organization, and this town is it's a very small town. It's your like prototypical, if you could imagine, an American small town. No fast food chain restaurants, nothing like that. And their emblem was a Bible. It literally said Bible on there, and the crosses around that Bible. And so when we went there to come share our story about what happened in Oak Creek. And since 2012, President Obama was the president in 2012. We've been the number one problem that we were seeing is demographic change. People are uncomfortable with demographic change. The neighborhood's getting darker. The neighborhood's getting more Muslim. The neighborhood's getting something like people are just uncomfortable with this.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that said, you have those that we sometimes call preservationists, meaning that they want to preserve their culture or identity or whatever the culture is in that town. And that was very much how Groton looked at a certain sect. But now President Trump is in office. So now with President Trump in office, a lot of that implicit bias became explicit. And really people had to challenge their own sort of like, well, racism. We're in a post-racial society. Nobody could really say that anymore. And so, some people were like, no, well, we just like the way that our town looks and our emblems, and we want to honor that. But then there was another sect who was like, you know what? If we're doing that, are we really creating an inclusive America? Are we allowing people to come in and share in this civic process? Being able to share what happened on August 5th opened up those heartstrings and really teaching out of empathy, teaching from a sense of like storytelling and what happened to this community when you don't proactively stand up against hate and intolerance. So
sharing your stories is what really changes.
And then the solution became really just presented by the town ourselves to hold an election inside the new Hindu temple.
Mm-hmm.
They made that the polling place, actually. The town was really connected to local politics. Like, everybody voted. Everybody was really passionate about it. And one of the selectmen, after we had screened an amazing documentary about August 5th called Waking in Oak Creek that was done by an amazing org called Not in Our Town. It's about a 30-minute doc. It really does a beautiful job of not only portraying the shooting, but more importantly, portraying the 1 year response afterwards. And I think after we screened that and we did a panel, we had an amazing community discussion in the high school gym. So many people involved with all these different viewpoints. And we really made sure that everyone got heard, everyone felt listened to. And that set the stage for a motion to hold the polling for the next election in the Hindu Muntar, which passed. And so now the people who were kind of like, oh, I don't know about these Hindus, or they come to their place of worship and they're like, hey, these are awesome people. They're just like us. They want a nice place to raise their kids. They're spiritual. And once those connections were drawn, we really believe that the town is now on a really healthy path to not only healing and addressing with these kind of trepidations they have, but really like thriving and becoming a better town than it was before.
I love that. And I just want to go back to what you said when you were talking about what you do with Serve to Unite. So it sounds like it's not even necessarily about going into schools and talking about inclusion and not hating people. It's about bringing kids together and encouraging them to go out and work on things. And so just by the very nature of bringing them together, you're kind of getting rid of that division. Is that the idea?
Yeah, it's absolutely like action based.
I love it.
A great example is in the 16-17 school year, we had a chapter that wanted to address Islamophobia. So we partnered with a local organization that serves homeless veterans. And our students, with guidance from one of our global mentors, a Muslim woman in London named Yasmin Mulbakas, our students reached out to the local Muslim population, asked if they would like to be involved in a food and clothing drive for homeless veterans. The mosques were like all about it. They loved the idea. There was many veterans who attended the mosque. And so over the course of a couple months, they gathered almost 2 tons of food and clothing and sanitary items for homeless vets, helping them get on their feet. And nothing makes the point of what Islam is really about stronger than that action. So after we do that, if somebody's like, oh, Muslims are terrorists, I'm like, okay, I'm happy to talk to you about that, but first I have to go to the mosque to pick up the 2 tons of food and clothing that they gathered for homeless veterans. So excuse me one moment. Nothing speaks louder than that action.
That is absolutely fantastic. I love it's such a brilliant idea. Brilliant organization. Can you tell us about your new book, The Gifts of Our Wounds?
So this is our new book, The Gift of Our Wounds.
Yeah. Whose head is that? Is that yours, Arno? Is that
you? This is not my shaved head. I think that's stock photography, but
okay, gotcha.
Good question.
We wrote this book with the help of Robin Gabby Fisher, who's amazing. She's the dean of journalism out at Rutgers. But this book is definitely about East and West coming together. It's about, and we could talk about a lot of the macro things, but really we wanted to write this from a perspective of these are two boys who are growing up in very different circumstances, growing up near the same area, but having a completely different experience. One goes on and becomes Arno and becomes a white supremacist, but also finds his way out. So really representing to people what change can look like.
Yeah.
And hopefully, like, my story tells about the immigrant experience. Me coming here about 6 years old and growing up in Milwaukee and really just struggling with identity. When I was growing up, there wasn't a lot of Indian or Sikhs around. So I never really felt like I was enough of anything. Never felt like I was white enough. Never felt black enough. Never felt Latino enough. Never felt anything enough. But in a beautiful kind of way, not feeling enough allowed me to be me, and not be so attached to those identities. And so hopefully my story tells you a little bit about transformation and how we can transform.
For me, a big theme of this book actually is what healthy masculinity looks like.
Great point.
And I don't know that the word masculinity itself is even mentioned anywhere in this book, but like, just since I've known Par's helped me be a better father, a better man. Like, I've learned about what being a man is about, and it's about sacrifice. It's about compassion and having the courage to forgive rather than to respond to aggression with more aggression. And our two stories, one of me being born with the American dream handed to me on a silver platter and spending my whole life like scrapping and clawing to get away from it. Pardeep's family coming here, his father like going almost superhuman effort to achieve the American dream. And then the shooting indicates what can go wrong when masculinity isn't understood and when we have a toxic understanding of it. And then ending with our relationship and the work that we've done, I think that's a great example of what masculinity should be. So I'm a feminist. I believe that it's not over the top to say that all human violence essentially boils down to testosterone mismanagement. It's about men who don't know how to deal with being a man, and including when women commit violence. Without fail, you can trace that back to a man that made them suffer to get to that point. So the book, I believe, is when you get done reading it, if you're a young man, if you're an old man, you're going to have a better idea of how to manage your testosterone than you did before. And then
which a lot of men need. So
yes,
thank you, gentlemen.
You really need to work on that in the society.
Yeah. Yes. So the book is available now. We're also giving away a copy of the book, so you can sign up. The sign up is in the description in this chat. So make sure you do that, and also make sure you check out the book because it sounds fantastic. I wanted to ask one quick question from you, Pardeep, because you'd said that what would you advise to kids in your situation, or maybe a better question is what would you said to your younger self, or if you could say to your younger self about being a kid growing up, not feeling like you're fitting in, just being the odd one out? Like, what advice would you give now with everything that you've been through?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said that. I think that sometimes we write these books for others, but maybe we do write this book for that child in us who's waiting to be rescued, who's waiting to be told that they were always enough. And that's what I would tell. I have 3 boys now, and one beautiful daughter. But I would tell myself that you have always been enough, and just to be proud of who you are. Love yourself, express yourself. One of the things Arno sometimes gets labeled in this book as like, because you're the juxtaposition is like mine is kind of serene and then going along, and all of a sudden here's Arno's chaotic life. Right, and then it goes back to serene, and it makes for a beautiful contrast. But there was parts of my life that came up, and I was like struggling with different things, and definitely unhealthy masculinity was one of them. and not being able to express myself.
Mm.
The way that I could express myself was either avoidance or anger.
Right.
And, there's all the spectrum of emotions. So I would definitely tell that younger self that feel free to express yourself, and sadness and frustration and feel those feelings, but be careful what you emote around.
What do you mean? Be careful what you emote around. Do you mean like within anger?
Yeah, like if you have anger, that's an honest feeling. If you feel sad, that's an honest feeling. Feel it. But the emotion, like what are you emoting around? Is that ruminating in your head? Is that your driving force? If it is, I've seen too many people close to me emote around that for too long and become dysfunctional fathers and husbands and family.
Right. And I think that's a very key point, like feel the feelings. I had this whole thing where I was trying to, I'm like, I'm a spiritual being that's conscious and in control. I shouldn't be so subjected to, somebody says something and then I'm just so angry. And it's like, well, if that is the feeling that arises, allow that feeling to arise. Feel the feeling. You don't have to go and punch people or scream and shout and lash out, but allow yourself to sit with that feeling and feel it fully, and then it dissipates. And people don't seem to do that. Like you said, it's avoiding it or lashing out, and it's like other ways around that.
That's perfectly said. Yeah.
Yeah. And Arno, what would you say to your younger self?
Well, going on this theme of talking about anger, like there is great wisdom in anger, but we can't find that wisdom if we're letting the anger lead us by the nose. We got to, like I said, sit and feel that anger, but then let it pass. And now you can look back and be like, why was I angry?
Right.
Look at the conditions that led to that. And you can kind of like evaluate the value that comes from that process. Saying to my younger self, I would say that the biggest thrill ever is helping people. I was always looking for the next thrill. I'm a lifelong adrenaline junkie, and I climbed trees when I was a little kid. I played football. I wrestled. And that when you suffer and you don't process it in a healthy way, now my adrenaline fix becomes causing trouble, getting in fights, like making people angry, scaring people. There's a much better way to get that thrill is just by helping people. And surfing is awesome too. Like scuba diving, like that. Rock climbing, that's all healthier ways to do it.
Much better thrills. Yeah. That's fantastic. I'm just going to read a couple of the comments that we have on here, if I can get it up. These comments on Facebook are a bit of a pain. We've got Tracy that says, no, that's the wrong thing. Leah says, I disagree. It's not about male sex. It's about dominance, learned behavior, and patriarchy. I think that was in relation to our conversation about the, maybe that was when you were saying, Arno, maybe about women. Maybe everything coming down to women.
Yeah, I honestly don't think that's disagreement. It's not. It is definitely about dominance, absolutely. But like, why do men have this misunderstanding of dominance, and why do they need to have this like drive to dominate it? It's hormonal, actually. Like we have physical parts of our body that produce this kind of energy, and if we don't direct that energy in a healthy way, this need to dominate is like the logical place for it to emerge. So I really appreciate that statement, but I don't think it really disagrees with anything that we had to say.
Got it. I think there's more comments popping up from different places where I've shared the video, so I don't have them here. But lastly, what's next for you guys? What's the plan with the book? Can people come and see you? Like, how can people get involved? All that good stuff.
We're very excited to be doing quite a bit of traveling and talking to people about the book. We're doing readings, we're doing talks. We just got back from Washington, D.C., where we had an amazing book event that was sponsored by Search for Common Ground, which is one of our favorite NGOs in the world. We're going to be out working with more small towns. Next week, we're going to be at a Department of Homeland Security meeting talking about ways to prevent and divert violence in our society. We're going to be doing Serve to Unite still, and we're also in the works of starting a new media platform based on our book. It's very, very early stage right now, but we're very excited about that also.
That's very cool. I recently met with a company called Try Life, who have got like have you heard of them before?
I've not.
They've got a following of about over 6 million people on social. The idea is that, I'm actually going to put you guys in touch because they're phenomenal and you're phenomenal. But the whole idea behind the company is it started off this guy, he was in foster care, he was a very violent kid. And then he kind of got older and started working with kids because he could relate with these troublesome kids because he was one and they respected him because he was quite a known guy in the area. As a kid, he used to read these books where you would, adventure books, where you choose the different
choose your own adventure.
Yes. So from that, he started a video, which was about a young girl making the choice to either go out and party. She's got an exam the next day and go out and party, or she comes to stay. So basically, there was like a 500-page script. They shot it for £20,000 in 2 weeks. Wow. Other companies had said that it for something this size would be like over $1 million. They did it for £20,000 because he's not a filmmaker. He had no clue. He's like, I'm just going to go make it. Got all of these kids in the local area to write the script. And so basically you're trying life. So every situation is like a video, and then you get to choose the outcome. And there's all these different outcomes that lead to different outcomes, and you can go back and play it again. And whichever, whether she didn't go out and she stayed at home, then this happened, and whether she did, this happened. And it addressed things like drugs and sexual health, and so they've got all these different videos. And now they're working on doing one with gangs, the Bloods and Crips in LA, doing like the history of where it all began. Anyway, they're fantastic. But I think with what you're doing, it's very, very similar. And so this idea that you have for the platform, I'd love to chat to you about that. And
absolutely. Part of the next part of our phase is to give survivors and perpetrators or formers a voice in all this. And so, I mean, we've met amazing survivors that have been come in classrooms and taught kids, but they've taught on just those principles right there. Like we might not have control of what happens to us, but we do have a choice on how we respond. And very much so, when August 5th happened, it was one of the deadliest shootings committed by an affiliated white supremacist in a long time. And if we didn't act the way that we did, if we didn't do what we did, we actually felt like we were going to put other people in danger. Because if misery is allowed to, or hate is allowed to basically take a hold of the conversation, and then you put other people at danger. And so the response was definitely like, our response is always geared towards safety. How can we create safer environments if somebody is thinking to do this at home?
Yes, brilliant. How are you guys doing all of this? Like, as you were just saying before I went off on the thing about Twilight. I'm just like, how are you physically doing all of this? That's a lot of stuff. Is it just you guys? Do you have a team? Like, I know you have all the other people for Serve to Unite. You said you've got these leaders. How do you do this?
We do it through coalitions. We partnerships. So we play a role with these different organizations. Next week, we're going to meet for Parents for Peace, who do a lot of this, like identifying the threat and developing hotlines for concerned parents, practitioners. But definitely, this work is done in coalitions and knowing like your place and how you can help.
I think I'm feeling very clever for just thinking of this. The way we do it is we unite to serve. Seriously, isn't that clever? Without the help of all these amazing organizations and individuals that we're very blessed to have in our network, where there's no way we can do this. So it's everything we do is very much an active example of what we're trying to teach, and we're super stoked about that.
Yeah, since the beginning, it's been educators who have stood up, arts-based organizations who have helped us, community orgs, national orgs, working with gun legislation orgs. I mean, it's really been a joint effort. And I think like when you understand that there's so many people, metaphorically, who will stand on that wall, I think you feel great inside.
And that's it. Like I do believe that so many people want to help. They just don't really know how. And when you give them the opportunity and you bring them together and you empower them with people that know, I don't know anyone that given the opportunity would go, no, I don't want to help and make a difference. We do. And that's what you're doing. You're empowering people and bringing them together. And that is the thing, you know, my issue was I was trying to fix all these problems in the world, and I physically can't, but you can empower people and work with other people and get other people going so that we're all doing it. And then there's the strength in everyone there. So you're doing such a remarkable thing. You're such an inspiration, both of you. Thank you so much for everything.
Well, thank you so much.
You too, Ione.
Yeah.
Totally mutual inspiration.
Thank you. And yeah, all the best with the book. Everyone, I'll put links to where you can find more information. The Gift of Our Wounds. Yep. Sign up to win a copy, or go and get a copy. And I'll put more links to these guys in the post. Thank you so much. And all the best, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks.